What's up, everybody, and welcome to another awesome episode of the Insurance Untangled Podcast. I am one of your co-hosts. With me today, I have Mr. Naren and Mr. Ben. What is up, dudes? How are you doing?
Doing great.
Doing excellent.
Great.
Yes, excellent, bro.
You know what? This podcast is coming up on the 16th, and 16th is my lucky number.
Is it?
Why is that?
I was born on the 16th.
Oh, you're born on the 16th. That's
Of
your
January?
lucky number.
No, not of January.
Oh, okay.
Just 16 is your lucky number. So 6 is my lucky number then, because I was born on the 6th.
On the 6th.
Yeah, that's what we'll do. Or since I'm a twin, it should be 12, right?
Right, exactly.
We'll double it. Yeah. All right, today I'm pumped to be interviewing Mr. Ben. Today we're going to be talking about the dental buyer's journey with credentialing and the fee negotiations. So Ben, my first question to you is, when should a buyer of a dental practice get started on credentialing? I've heard a lot of horror stories with this if they do it incorrectly. So tell us kind of what you've seen out there.
Well, ideally, you want to start as soon as possible, but there are some restrictions with being able to start early as you want. I mean, if you can start 3 months before you close or longer than 3 months, that'd be ideal, because that'll give insurance plenty of time to get you processed. But a lot of times buyers have confidentiality agreements with sellers, right? Where the sellers don't know, or the teams don't know that the practice is being sold. So if you start credentialing during that confidentiality period, there could, of course, be a situation where an insurance company calls the practice, right, and talks to Susie Q up front, saying, "Hey, I'm calling them to do the credentialing for so and so, right?" And so is the buyer. It's like, well, I don't know so and so, right? So
Yeah, sure, that can cause some issues.
So who's so and so trying to get credentialed at our practice? So you have to coordinate these things with the seller, buyer and seller, right? Otherwise, you could breach confidentiality. And I've personally seen deals fall apart when
because of this.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. So on that part there, start as early as you can, but also be very sensitive to any confidentiality that's in place.
Yeah, one of my so outside of dentistry, my brother-in-law is the owner and manager of a mental health clinic, and they started it from scratch, and they I think waited too long to do credentialing, so they could not. They had a practice, they had everything running, but they couldn't generate income, right? Because they weren't credentialed. It was a mess for several months for them. I felt really bad.
Oh yeah, it could put a new business owner out of business pretty
real
quick.
Fast. Yeah,
especially if you have a lot of Medicaid, where Medicaid doesn't pay out of network, right?
Yeah, which they did. Yeah.
Whereas we see this every month with clients, as well as just the industry as a whole. So plan ahead and have contingencies in place to accommodate credentialing timelines. And don't let anybody tell you it's going to take 2 weeks to get credentialed. That is patently false. Or it's going to take 30 days. Yeah, good luck. Credentialing doesn't go that fast. It takes months to get credentialed. Sometimes, if you're lucky, it could take a couple of weeks if it is an insurance carrier that has a history of processing fast, but you don't see that these days.
Yeah, that's interesting. It's just a slow process.
Yeah, I think even I'm finding that I have a large team, 250 people, and some of my teams do extremely well, others not as much. The ones who do extremely well, you know what the difference is?
What is that?
They work ahead of time. In other words,
there's
something happening like 3 months from now. They are asking us today. Proactive. They're like, okay, what do we need to do? How do we get it done? How do we do an A+ job? The others usually will wake up 2 weeks before the event or whatever is happening and try to put something.
Oh shit, we gotta go.
That's a mess. I mean, it's just pretty black and white. It's like a 5x difference in results. Sometimes, it's unbelievable how much of a difference it makes, that proactive.
Most people are reactive, and that's not a very good strategy. So back to your point of your productive employees, the proactive people always win.
Yeah, 100%. If a buyer is not in network by close date, what options do they have? No, I know we are talking to the reactive people now.
Yeah. Which sadly, this is most of the transitions because, the broker community out there, they try their best to help warn their buyers about this whole process, right? And there's so many moving parts when you're buying a dental practice. But if you're not in network by the close date, so I'm going to go through what I'm about to say next is considered the norm.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, rated R. Rated X. Sorry. No, it is rated R in terms of controversy. Like, it is one of those that it's considered the norm even by insurance companies, but there are some regulations that you have to consider. So the standard protocol when a purchase agreement is written is that the buyer will have the seller agree to terms where claims during the transition window, maybe up to a 3 to 6 month period, the claims are submitted under the supervising doctor or a dental director for the practice, right? That may not necessarily be the treating doctor or the rendering doctor, right? And that doctor is always the seller. So in essence, the claims get submitted under the seller's name and tax ID in an effort for the claims to get processed in network up until the buyer gets credentialed with insurance. So huge controversy because when you look at that on paper, I did the work, but the claim is submitted under another doctor's license. How is that not considered insurance fraud? Well, the reason why it's considered okay for transitions is, number one, and again, these are non-written rules. These are actually non-official feedback from every insurance carrier that we've talked to, and they maintain this. They'll deny it if you call them, but when you speak to the right people, especially if it's sort of somebody that's friendly, they'll give you the same feedback. And they say, well, as long as the buyer's in the credentialing process, and as long as there's an agreement in place between the buyer and seller, designating the seller as a quote unquote supervising doctor, according to the insurance industry, that is well within the parameters of a law called the False Claims Act. And the False Claims Act has a supervision clause in it that allows claims to be submitted under an attending or supervising doctor, not necessarily the doctor that treated the patient. So what's an example of how that's legal, right? Well, when you look at dental schools, you have non-licensed students that perform treatment. Year 4 students perform treatment on their own, and the teachers are not even there most of the time, or not even on site or in the facility. And yet the claims are submitted under the teachers' licenses and NPI numbers because the students aren't licensed. They're still learning, right? So I beg the question, if it's illegal for 2 licensed dentists to engage in this, how is this not even more illegal when a student does this, right? A student does the work and it's submitted under the claim. Well, the answer to that, and this is actually education that I received from, I'm not going to name the insurance companies, but they're the biggest insurance carriers that exist, both on the healthcare and dental side of medical and dental side of things. But they all say that this is okay for a transition simply because the False Claims Act clearly outlines the parameters behind the supervising dentist clause, right? So that's the one option. The other option is that you can submit claims, but you can report the in-network fees so that the claims get processed under the in-network fees, right? And let the insurance company know that is that you're temporarily submitting the claims under the in-network fees because you're currently out of network waiting to get approved. And that way the EOB reflects out of pocket, and this is not foolproof, but for the most part, the EOB will reflect out of pocket that'll be as close as possible to what the patient would have paid in network anyway, right? So you do have that solution that of course only works if there are out-of-network benefits. It does not work if there's no out-of-network benefits to where insurance carrier has no reimbursement whatsoever. So those are the 2 more common options on how to deal with temporary out-of-network situations while you're waiting to get credentialed.
Sure. All right. I think you might have covered this one, but I'll repeat it anyways. How long does it take to get credentialed with insurance?
So
you said it's not 2 weeks, it's not 30 days, it's a mess.
Oh, it's so laughable because we'll take on a client and that client will tell the buyer, oh yeah, it only took us 2 weeks to get credentialed. And here we are dealing with Delta Dental of California that's taking a minimum of 4 months in 2023, 2024. They probably got credentialed in the 1980s. And yeah, it probably did take 2 weeks back then. But we live in a different age, a different era where a lot of businesses are, for the most part, still very much understaffed. And insurance carriers, I believe that they intentionally are understaffed to use AI to replace human beings, right, in the business. So you see those dynamics happening where credentialing these days, it could take a minimum of 3 months to get credentialed, where some plans could take as long as 6 months. So you have to plan that, talk to a professional, get the right feedback, and verify. I usually recommend, don't take my word for it. Talk to somebody else, talk to the insurance company directly if you don't believe me, but the timelines will vary, right? And 3 to 6 months is usually what I see on the credentialing front.
Yeah.
Ben, I have a question for you. Are there any risks, like big risks, that a buyer takes when he's buying a PPO practice, where he does not get credentialed and therefore stays fully on network?
Yes. So out of network wise, if the existing practice, the doctor was in network with all dental plans, right? And let's say 90% of the patients have insurance, and 90% of the patients are coming in under in network. So typically what you see during a transition is that regardless of your in-network status with insurance, you're going to see attrition anyway, right? You're a new face. Some people, will start shopping around or be less committed or not want to come back in because you're just a new business owner, right? New person. Takes time to build trust with people in general. When you add the fact that you're not going to be accepting the patient's PPO plan anymore, there's a real strong possibility that patient attrition might be a lot higher than you want it to be, right? And I've seen both where doctors took over a PPO practice, they stayed out of network as a new owner, and they lost 50 to 60% of their patient base, right? Or the existing patient base. On the flip side, I've seen doctors come in with a solid plan, proactively communicating with patients, putting in good policies and a plan in place to let people know why you're not going to continue with their PPO, even to the extent where I've seen doctors call every single patient, over a 1 month period. They would just pick up the phone and make a list and call everybody. Those practices would typically see far less attrition, right? Usually anywhere between 20 to 30%, sometimes a little bit higher. But the truth of the matter is that people don't want change, right? Mm-hmm. And patients, when they see change, especially if that change involves, now I have to pay more out of pocket to you as the new owner who I don't know, right? And I don't yet trust, right? So naturally, that is a reason for people to leave. So my recommendation is, if you do plan on becoming a fee-for-service and out-of-network provider in the future, I recommend minimize the change. Just join those same networks that the seller has, and then you can work on a plan to start getting off of these plans once you've built a relationship with trust with those patients. Consistently, the numbers work out so much better if you do that, as opposed to taking over a practice that the seller was in network and you're now out of network. You're not going to escape a very high rate of attrition under that example.
It's probably equivalent if a practice owner is buying a new practice and they're out of network, to a practice that's in network and then just suddenly goes out of network with all of their PPO contracts, right? It's probably the similar type of situation.
Yes. So the right protocol,
which is never recommended.
Yeah. Yeah. The right protocol towards going out of network is good patient communication, right? And advanced notice to these patients, sort of slow pacing the out of network journey, right? Not let it be a knee-jerk reaction, dropping today and notifying patients tomorrow. That rarely ever works in favor of a doctor.
No, I've seen practices do that.
You have to have you have to have a really solid plan that's very thoughtful, methodical to become a true fee-for-service practice. Yeah.
A good strategy for that. All right, cool. Here's my next question. What about NPI numbers? Is it critical to have a type of business NPI before credentialing starts?
Yeah, type 2 NPI. So type 2 NPI or organizational type NPI. 2. Yep. So every dentist is required to have an individual NPI that's tied to that doctor's personal license, right? Or their dental license.
Sure.
And if you have a tax ID, the government does require you to get a type 2 MPI as well. And you can apply for that MPI just on the MPI website. That's the rule is if you're not submitting claims as a sole proprietor under your own social security number, or you have a business that is considered a sole proprietor, you're exempt from having a type 2 MPI, unless you're going to contract with Medicaid. So Medicaid, they always require you to report your type 2 MPI, regardless of whether you have a tax ID or not. My opinion and recommendation on this is that if you're entering a business, even if you're not going to do Medicaid, and you have a tax ID, a business tax ID, always get a type 2 MPI. You don't need to use it as part of the credentialing process, but you may need to use it when you submit claims at some point in the future because it's a government requirement to have one.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. What about, like, is it a good idea to negotiate your fees before you start the credentialing process? Does that even happen?
Yeah, so it depends on your timeline. Like if you have enough time to get to do the negotiations, keep in mind that when you negotiate fees, it could extend the whole process, right? Where sometimes negotiations could be a month, it could be 2 to 3 months, right?
Sure.
And you can't start the credentialing process until that negotiating process is done. Insurance companies will tell you otherwise. They'll say, go ahead and sign the agreement. And as we're processing your application,
and don't read it.
Yeah, we're going to negotiate. But within that agreement that you signed, like Cigna, as an example, it says you agree to not negotiate or terminate for 24 months. So once you sign that, you can't negotiate anymore. And the Cigna reps disappear, right?
Yeah.
And now you can't cancel the contract because you already signed it, right? And it's good for 24 months. So these tricks that the insurance companies are throwing into contracts, they're doing that because nobody reads the contracts.
Yeah.
So that's a big mistake. We all need to read these contracts. You know, we're in a different era, right? Where these tricks of you signing something where you're not fully informed, well, you still have the signature on the dotted line that could be defended in court, right? It's an assumption that you read it, but it's not the responsibility of the insurance company to verify that you read it. All they know is that you signed it, right?
So yeah, I never sign anything without either me reading it if it's a basic legal agreement or having my attorney read everything, right? And then it takes a few minutes, call me like, hey, Mr. Attorney, just review what it's saying to me. I don't understand all the weird words. Why can't people talk normal in attorney worlds, right? I use all these fancy words. Anyways,
it's designed to slip you up and confuse
I know it's weird. It's stupid. Anyways,
let me ask you a question on resources for credentialing. Are there any resources available out there that doctors could use to kind of learn more about credentialing, or they need help on credentialing? Any suggestions, Ben?
Yeah, absolutely. So I recommend this. So this area of purchasing a practice and the advice on credentialing, especially on fee negotiations, it is always best to consult with a professional. And that's something that we do for businesses in dentistry. We do credentialing, we do fee negotiation. We're actually building a software piece that's going to automate credentialing and re-credentialing for practices into the future. The current system that doesn't really exist in the industry today. There's no automations for credentialing. We're looking to have the first in the industry in 2024. So with that said, if you're looking to buy, or if you're just an existing practice and practice is slow, you're looking to maybe join some PPOs, sometimes joining PPOs could help. A lot of times it doesn't help in terms of new patient acquisition. So regardless of whether you're at in that journey, practice journey, right? New buyer, existing practice, if you need help with credentialing or want to explore what your options are, you can contact our team. Our website is veritasdentalresources.com, or you can give our team a call at 888-808-4513. And we'd be more than happy to give you an opinion on the approach for credentialing and possible fee negotiations, no matter if you're buying a practice or if you're exploring those on your own at the moment. Give us a call. We'll give you a consultation for free.
Thank you very much, Ben. I mean, Ben is like a walking encyclopedia, and his team is just unbelievable. They have like what, hundreds of years of experience. I mean, between Ben and the team,
thousands of years. Yeah,
probably thousands,
billions,
probably billions. Yeah, because yeah, that's probably accurate. That's pretty accurate.
when you add all how old our molecules are,
yeah, that makes sense. That's exactly where I was going.
So I think that would be a great place to start. As I bring this podcast to a close, I do want to ask you two questions, and I want you to give me one-word answers. I'm not putting you on the spot. I'm asking you the same questions that we already covered. Question number one: when should a buyer of a dental practice get started on credentialing?
3 to 6 months before you close.
Okay. How long does it take to get credentialing with insurance?
3 to 6 months.
Okay. Thank you so much, Ben. I, as always, learn a lot from you. And thank you so much, Jordan, for co-hosting and
just messing around,
starting us off, messing around, keeping us honest, like stopping us from falling asleep. So I learned a ton. Please, we'll put all the links that Ben suggested. And please check out Ben's website, veritasdentalresources.com. Thank you for joining us today with another amazing episode of the Insurance Untangled podcast. We are rocking it. We had our summit recently, and it was a huge success. The next one is coming up on the 1st of March at 12 noon Eastern time. So we'll be sharing more information about that soon. It's 12 noon Eastern time on the 1st of March. It's going to be about avoiding mistakes, the things that you want to watch out for, because, we can work really, really hard doing things right, but if we make 2 or 3 big mistakes, then it kind of pulls the rug under us and we are back to square one. So it's going to be an awesome event. So we're looking forward to it. We're going to have some new guests. So that's going to be also fun. So meet us there. But till then, thank you for everything you do. Thank you for sharing this podcast with your friends and colleagues. Thank you for writing those reviews on iTunes and Google Play so more people can find us. And of course, thank you for visiting the website, insuranceuntangleded.com, for all the latest information about this entire initiative of like working with insurance companies, how to get the most out of your situation of, being on PPO plans and so forth. We have exclusive freebies, resources, and much more on the website. Have a great day, everyone.